Giannis Antetokounmpo, you are a Dallas
Mav.
Maverick. We've got to botch that. Jeffrey Cooperstein and Harrison Graham. He's not actually a Mav, at least not yet. But he did a big interview with, what podcast was it, Coop? Some
It was
ESPN?
called 48 Minutes. It was of the Believe Network.
Is that a rip off of 60 Minutes? Whatever it is. He did a podcast there and said some interesting stuff, including some things about the Dallas Mavericks. So let's dive in here, Coop. We'll start with this one. He said, I'm a Milwaukee Buck, but most importantly, I'm a winner. If there is a better situation for me to win the Larry O'Brien, I have to take that better situation. Oh boy, would there be a better situation than teaming up with Luka? I don't know.
People are talking. I mean, look, these guys are the two best international players in the league, obviously along with Nikola Jokic as well. I think this would be an awesome pairing. We know the Mavericks have a long-standing interest in Giannis dating back to his draft. It's something to just keep an eye on is all I'm saying.
It's kind of funny how we've come full circle here, Coop, because we've talked about this a couple times. The offseason before they won a title in Milwaukee, all the chatter around the NBA was kind of like, all right, if they don't basically win the title this year, he's gone. And, of course, they won the title, so he signed the Supermax. The rest is history. But if Milwaukee has a disappointing season this year, which, by the way, they just gave Chris Middleton $100 million.
Gave him a lot of money.
I don't know how much he's got left in the tank. Like, if that proves to not be great, then they're kind of handicapped with how they can help Giannis moving forward. I could see the wheels start to churn next offseason from the Giannis camp. Now, you look at his contract situation, probably looking at 2025 at the earliest, but I wouldn't completely dismiss a trade next offseason, whether that's Dallas or elsewhere, if it just goes really bad this year, right? Like, say Milwaukee underachieves, loses in the first or second round, it just looks choppy, and it's not a good situation. I could see Giannis in his camp wanting a trade. Now, I tend to think he probably is going to play the next 2 years out, opt out if things go bad, and then hit free agency, but we'll see. I think this year is certainly a big one from Giannis' standpoint.
It's just been kind of weird. This whole offseason, Giannis has been kind of hinting at, hey, if we're not good, man, I mean, some things need to change around here.
Isn't it kind of weird that they won the title like 2-3 years ago? You would think that would buy a lot of goodwill, especially for a franchise like the Milwaukee Bucks.
Agreed.
And already it's like, yeah, man, if there's a better situation, I'm taking it. Like, that's a bit odd.
They won the title 2 years ago, right, in 2021, and here we are now where Giannis is basically saying, hey, if we're not at least championship contenders this year, you guys have some serious things to think about going forward. So he's putting the Bucks in an interesting situation as well. Like, what more can the Bucks really do after they sign Middleton to that deal?
They're renting it back. They're in the tax.
They have Drew Holiday on a big contract.
If it doesn't work with this crew, there's not much they can do because if Middleton's bad, that's kind of an untradeable contract.
Exactly, yeah. We don't know what's going on with Middleton and his knee because, I mean, he's had all kinds of problems lately. Obviously a very good player if healthy, but he's on the wrong side of 30 as well.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, and, you know, obviously they wanted Giannis, and they, at least some of the Mavs brass, Mark Cuban obviously talked or kind of pulled his Jerry Jones card, and they didn't make that move. Now, do you have Luka? If you have Giannis, there's all these what ifs, right? Like that we could talk about, but it would be very, very interesting. We know, Coop, the Mavs, they've swung and missed a lot in the past on Big Fish, but one common thing they've been able to do is get international talent here. Dirk, Luka, Kristaps, tons of like role players in the past.
They attract the international talents just because of their success. Dirk obviously paving the way. And that's kind of part of the reason that Luka wanted to go to the Mavs too in his draft process. He did not want to be a Sacramento King. I think everyone knows that at this point in time. Yeah. That he wanted to be a Maverick just because he knows that in Dallas you can kind of just be the guy that you want to be. And especially if you're as good as Luka is, you can still be a superstar playing in Dallas.
And I think a key point we should make here, Coop, if you are in the camp of wanting Giannis in Dallas, which I don't know why you wouldn't, your best chance is him hitting free agency in 2 years.
Absolutely.
Because if he asks for a trade next year, you probably don't have the ammo. I mean, sure, like Kyrie Irving in a trade, money-wise, skill-wise, could add up. But if Giannis asks for a trade, is Milwaukee taking 32-year-old Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Probably not.
I wouldn't think so either. Yeah, I think their best bet would be to get him in free agency. So it's kind of a waiting game. But I know I say this again, and I'm falling into this trap, but the Mavs are in an okay position here.
Yeah, if he hits free agency, I would put, and he does leave Milwaukee, like if he makes it clear he's going to leave, I would put Dallas near the top of that list, assuming Luka is still happy here, at least happy enough to try and get Giannis here, because you would have Luka at age, 26?
And that would be the 4th year of Luka's deal, so he would have an opt-out the following season as well.
Kyrie would be entering his
Correct.
last year. He could kind of slide back to be that number 3. He'd still be 33 at that point, and it could be 1A, 1B with Luka and Giannis. Like, that's pretty appealing for a guy like Giannis, I would imagine, if that ends up being the case. So it'll be very interesting to see how the next 12 to 24 months go. Now, what say you? Will Giannis eventually become a Dallas Maverick? Type M for Maverick or O for he'll go elsewhere. He'll play for another team. What say you? Or yeah, he could say in Milwaukee. M for Maverick, O for other. Get your votes in the comments. And Giannis made some comments about a certain Dallas Maverick. Stay tuned for that. But first, BetUS, the place to go. I told you guys to bet on the Cowboys in week 1. Easy bread for your boy here. Chatsports.com/MFFL, promo code MFFL to get a 125% deposit bonus. Put down $100, you get $125 for free. Go vote Giannis for MVP. Go vote Luka for MVP. They're pretty high up on the odds. Chatsports.com/MFFL to get signed up right now with BetUS. All right, another intriguing takeaway, Coop, from Giannis here.
This is the most interesting part of this entire interview. Giannis and the guys he was talking with on the podcast were playing a word association game. So he was asked to say the first thing that comes to his mind when these guys ask. So they said, these guys asked Giannis, what do you think about Jason Kidd? His response, one word, genius.
Which is pretty interesting because that's not a word I would necessarily use to describe Jason Kidd, because I think the one thing we've been critical of is his X's and O's as a head coach.
I agreed. His X's and O's, especially last season, weren't great, but I will say there are a few smarter basketball minds in the NBA than Jason Kidd. I kind of think it's different because as a point guard, when you think of Jason Kidd, you think of extremely high IQ, extremely high assist guy, makes his teammates better. As a coach, it has been different, but I still think there is an element of basketball.
Oh, he's a very smart basketball mind. I think that's why I've just been so confused and concerned at times. Like, why doesn't this guy draw up better plays in late game situations?
The late game last year was inexcusable. I think the Mavs they hit that one buzzer beater against the Lakers,
which was kind of a fluke. Like,
exactly.
They just gave the ball to Kyrie and asked him to be a hero. But he got double teamed.
There were a couple times, I know, and I was at a couple of games where I'm like, what are you doing? Where they wouldn't even get a shot off. So they did have poor late game execution. But as we know, Giannis and Kidd do have a great relationship dating back to Kidd's time in Milwaukee. Now, Kidd had a lot of flaws as the head coach of Milwaukee, but Giannis seemed to like him. And when Milwaukee ended up firing Jason Kidd, Giannis was one of the first to come out and defend him and be like, I didn't want this to happen.
And I think the bottom line here, too, Coop, is regardless if you and I think Kidd is a great, genius, whatever term you want to use, Giannis does.
Yeah.
And if Kidd is still the coach by then, that gives you a chance to probably get this guy.
Now, let me ask you this. Does this give Jason Kidd some extra job security, knowing that there's the potential they could get Giannis?
I can't go there without seeing how this year plays out, because if Milwaukee has a great year, then things probably quiet down in Milwaukee, right? And if Dallas has a bad year, I don't think you can be like, well, we'll give you another 12 months because there's a tiny chance we could get Giannis if you stay. I just don't think you can operate that way. Now, if Dallas has a good enough year, not great, but good enough, in Milwaukee, it's in flux there, then maybe you're like, okay, let's run this for another year and just see how it goes. But I still think if the Mavs miss the playoffs this year, I don't think you can be like,
you're not bringing it back.
Well, we might get Giannis next year. I just don't think you can operate that way.
And the Mavs, made this whole front office and coaching change back in 2021 with the thought of building relationships within the NBA. It was clear that Donnie Nelson and Rick Carlisle just didn't have those relationships with players that maybe a guy like Jason Kidd and Nico Harrison, who came from Nike, does. I mean, Nico Harrison knows everybody. He had a relationship with LeBron, with Kobe, with Kyrie. And that's part of the reason why Kyrie felt comfortable coming to Dallas and signing that 3-year deal with the Mavs in free agency. So this regime is built on relationships, and I think that bodes well for them when trying to get not even Giannis, but other guys in free agency as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, Coop. I mean, if you're a Mavs fan, I think you're cheering hard against Milwaukee this year.
Absolutely. You're rooting against them in every single game.
Yeah, I mean, we know about the talent. The numbers speak for themselves when it comes to Giannis. Obviously, he the free throw shooting, the jump shot is, has been costly at times. I think that was definitely the case in that Heat series last year. I mean, late in that game, he didn't even want the ball. But the good news is if somehow he came here with Luka and Kyrie, it can kind of be built the way Milwaukee won their championship, where Giannis was the guy, but like in late game, you could just run through Luka and Kyrie because they can shoot at all three levels. They're better ball handlers than Giannis. Like, Giannis can just kind of be his dominant force throughout the course of the game along with Luka and Kyrie, but like Chris Middleton was their closer.
For sure.
Giannis is not known as some great isolation player, which he would not have to be that here.
It's all setting up to be very interesting, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating year. It's a big year for the Mavericks. It's a big year for Giannis, and who knows what's going to happen. The season is just around the corner. I can't wait to get going, man. We're less than 2 weeks away from training camp, and I'm super pumped.
Yeah, and I think those of you who just like are watching this video and you're like, Giannis, like, I think it's one of those, like, have this in the back of your mind.
Back of your mind.
Priority A,
planting the seed.
Play better this year, be a playoff team, at least win a playoff series. I think that's me and Coop's goal. If you can get to the second round with this team, I think that's, if it's constructed the way it is. Now, expectations could raise if they get a high-level center. We've talked about that a lot, but I think based on how you currently sit, make the playoffs and hopefully make the second round. But I think a secondary story to monitor this season is what's going on with the Bucks, because this didn't come out of nowhere in this interview, Coop.
No.
Like, there's been comments made since that first-round loss
by
to Miami.
Giannis.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the first comment that he's made about, hey, if this stuff doesn't work out this season, I mean, some things might need to change around here.
Yeah, so it's going to be fascinating. What do you guys think? Would Giannis and Luka be the best duo in NBA history? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Definitely the best international duo, I would say, Coop.
Oh, I would think so as well. I mean, if you consider Steve Nash and Dirk an international
They just
duo,
didn't play together long enough.
They didn't play long enough.
And they were both before their primes.
Yes, they were. So, I mean, if you get these two guys in their primes, it would be absolutely devastating. The Mavs, I would guarantee a title if the Mavs had Giannis and Luka.
I mean, if you don't win one, you should
sell the franchise.
Sell the franchise.
Yeah, they should relocate to Vancouver.
I mean, if Giannis comes here, and let's say it is in 2 years, he'll be 30, so still well within his prime with his athletic profile, and Luka would be, I think, 26, 27. I mean, you got like a 5-6 year window there where you're like, you should be the team to beat.
This is what I do. I just talk myself into these kind of things, that the Mavericks are going to be this
just
great
to be hurt
franchise,
again.
Only to be hurt once again. I can't wait to be hurt in a couple of weeks when the season starts. Make sure you guys subscribe. We're going to have some awesome content this year in season.
We'll be hurt with you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very excited for the season. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up here on Mavs Today, so stay tuned.
Appreciate it, guys. See ya.